Hello, welcome back to the European Masters, where this time around it will be Jake and I moving forward with the next couple of games here. Just want a high level production right now that my VMAX is currently not showing anything that I need to see. But good to be back. We will probably have a little few issues here with Jake having to sort out his headset, but don't worry about it. I'll roll over the game we just saw with Fnatic Team Queso having some rough times against SK. Really gotta say, nice upset coming out from the Polish region this time around, especially when you consider the fact that, you know, Fnatic Team Queso this time around, hugely hyped up team coming into this tournament, barely dropped any games in the MVP, and this time around dropping the ball a little bit in the late game. Harpoon on this Sire, I feel like his positioning of the feathers every time was just so damn good, but even up to like the last couple of fights, it was Team Queso with Fnatic here obviously driving the ball. Yeah, they lose out on a couple objectives, but they're still the team that's picking up the fights. They're still the team that's pushing forward. But this inevitably just led to them getting over cocky. And this is right here where we see it. Baka just flashes forward to try and land the stun card on Harpoon. Bean gets absolutely beamed himself finally by all the feathers coming back. And after this moment, I mean, Elder Dragon is up to take. And the problem for Fnatic right now is that they're not backing up. They still fancy themselves a fight, despite being on a map scale with a situation that's 4 versus 5, or 4 versus 3 rather. And when the last remaining members goes down, there's just nothing they can do. They have to forfeit so much pressure on the map. They have to back off and respect the Elder Drake, and they just lose too much momentum there. And then it comes down to this last base call. I really feel like Fnatic still could have just backed off here, tried to play it out if they really wanted to. Elder Drake has ran out. Yes, they're still going up against Baron, but they're 3 versus 4. I feel like to some degree it could still be playable, but it just wasn't the case. Or sorry, 3 versus 5 still. Wasn't the case. They decided to go for a Hail Mary, decide to go for the backdoor, doesn't work out. And while that happens, well, SK, they're just able to move down, get the Nexus for themselves. In a game that was probably one of the better games we've had of EU Masters so far. Not so much in game quality, but for sure in the entertainment factor. As we take a breather, and you can see, I mean, I've worked on the LPL. That right there, that's a classic LPL graph. And I'm getting now told that Hitbrain or Viperoon, I at least should have a buddy with me, so I'm not just doing this alone. Hello, is there anyone out there in the dark?
There is. I'm afraid it's not Hitbrain, but it's me. It's Viperoon. I'm back to help cover this 4th game just while we have a couple of technical difficulties. And honestly, it's a big game to jump in on.
For sure. I mean, I've really been looking forward to this one. I was just talking with Jake before. Now I'm just talking with you, of course, that looking forward to these games. We were just so lucky. We got all the bangers of today. Like the last 3 games we're going to be having coming up now. Absolutely phenomenal to have a look at. Like that is probably the highest quality, like some of the highest quality games we can have in the entirety of European Masters. So yeah, going in with Cave Cup now against X7, what a banger.
Well, we're going to have a look at the KC line. Of course, a lot of familiar names. Cabochard, 113, SAKEN, Rekkles, and Hantera coming through. Huge names. We've already seen them in play-ins, undefeated there. What can they do on the main stage?
That's the thing, there's so much pressure on this roster. Not only are they, you know, experienced players, majority already been in the LEC before, but it's also the pressure coming in from the organization's name, K-Corp. This is the back-to-back, the first time back-to-back champions we've had of the European Masters. And so far, this roster haven't actually lived up to those expectations that we wanted from the names that we see. They struggled a lot in the beginning of the LFL. They struggled finding their footing, but leading up towards playoffs, they actually started finding some of this momentum. They started looking way better, and I feel like as well, these players that we have here, they are players that rise to the occasion of the level that they are playing against. You know, Rekkles, Cabo, these are players, at least Cabo last year as well, who's known to be clutch. Rekkles played so many finals, so I can't imagine that nerves would be a thing for these guys.
And looking at the other side, a lot of familiar names as well. Jaeger, Haru, Tempt, Nata, and Kasing coming in for X7. And we talk about people who step up to the occasions. We've got world champions in this lineup.
Yeah, I think that's why this battle is so exciting, because this is not just a few ERL rookies coming in to fight against each other. Like, we have players here that's at least played on an LCS, LEC, or the world stage. Like, this is not just a normal game we're going to be witnessing here in the European Masters. This is going to be a bloodbath between players who are hungry to get back on the big stage. There is a lot of expectations for all these players. There's a lot of expectations to themselves as well. This is not the level they want to stay at. They will continue to move it forward, and a lot lot of fans have expectations of all these players too.
When we talk about the fan base, mentioned it to Jamada, he actually mentioned it earlier, how the two regions have been having a little bit of banter on social media. So both of these teams, both of these fan bases, and both of these regions will be wanting a victory more than anything and to set themselves up well going into the rest of the group stages. But we've got X7 on the blue side, we've got Karmine Corp on the red side, Amazon European Masters. This is a huge one.
Yeah, and I think for the side of X7, they have to get rid of SAKEN's champion pool. A lot of that goes into K-Corp's playstyle is getting opened up through mid lane. And they love to cheat around with tempo. Picks that let them do this, it's the Twisted Fate, it's the Rise. I feel like this is a necessity going up against SAKEN. Because I genuinely feel like the 2v2 between mid and junglers actually favors X7. Haru and Tempt has been absolutely phenomenal, and they haven't been challenged yet. So that's why it doesn't really surprise me to see K-Corp take away some of Haru's picks. I feel like if there's a way that X7 gets forward, especially in the early game, it is through Haru and it is through Tempt.
So we'll have to see if they decide to prioritize that heavily in draft, or whether they trust these two players to maybe go through a second round of bans. So they want to give something to Nata, who is the player that is the least experienced on the roster, going up against Rekkles in your first game at the Amazon European Masters. That's a big matchup. That's a terrifying one if I was in his shoes. But of course, he's got Kasing, the old head, alongside him. Diana and Rise will also be taken off the table, which means stuff like Zeri, Volibear still available.
So now you at least play on even footing into the mid lane, so those picks are taken away, and I completely agree with you with the Volibear shout as well. It's something that makes it super easy to play for your lanes, especially on K-Corp. You have so many talented laners to play for. Interesting to see that X7 is the team that decides, you know what, Zeri, not really the champion we're interested in. We have seen first pick Zeri start getting a little punished now. We've even seen the Nasus into it as well from Bifrost. Didn't really work out for them, unfortunately, but nonetheless, oh, actually they did win that one, so I'm just baffled here. But first pick coming through, Jinx Ophelia still up. Maybe that's what we're going for, or maybe it's just a Volibear you shouted out before.
Yeah, it's going to be Haru securing that one, giving the priority, giving the really strong pickup to a really strong player. Excellent start in the draft for X7, but it gives K-Corp a lot of opportunities to build through and go into different areas. Talk about the LeBlanc going to be locked in, giving them something very proactive they can play through in the mid lane as well.
And this was a champion all year last year that SAKEN was just not allowed to get once he reached the European Masters stage. Like, I think at some point undefeated on the champion moving into the tournament as well. So SAKEN, this is a champion that he really excels at. And I think last year I made the statement that he was the best LeBlanc on the ERL, or at least in the European Masters tournament, because he's just so damn good at playing around with the pressure. He really understands how to play it. But then, on the other hand, why not just then completely neutralize that with a Lissandra matchup for Tempt, who of course will just be trying to put as much CC on SAKEN whenever he tries to dive forward.
Yeah, able to lock him up, and we've got the misfortune for Nata as well. We've already seen it do so much work today. Maybe it will go towards that Leandri's build once again to give that massive AoE and to burn through members of K-Corp. The Jinx will be up against it, and we're going to see what's going to be in the jungle. Viego is going to be the lock-in for 1-1-3.
So I wonder now what we're looking for K-Corp, because it's really going to be about what are we prioritizing in terms of saving for counter pick. I feel like what they want to go for here is just get the counter pick for Cabochard. You already have a Jinx. It's not always the most play heavy we see towards that bot side. Like, quite often we will see K-Corp maybe go for Nautilus. That will still be an engager, but try to utilize that more around the map and wait for the team fights instead. I think X7 has a read on that. You can see the engage supports they're batting out, and from the side of K-Corp, they're trying to get rid of some of these supports as well, actually.
Yeah, I wonder
what they're looking for here.
Take it away. So it's going to be a case of, are we going to see something like the Rakan removed? Because that would be the power 4 being taken off the table. Fresh has seemingly slipped through a number of different times, but I'm interested to see if X7 are going to want to go in that direction, or maybe remove something from the top lane. And it's actually going to be the Fresh, as I mentioned, going to be taken off the table. So you take something like the Rakan, maybe the Lulu alongside the Jinx.
Yeah, Rakan is really difficult into Lissandra, so I was going to say we might even see something really unorthodox as well. So yeah, I was going to go with your statement as well. Either an Enchanter, or maybe you actually go for this, try to punish an immobile AD carry like the Misfortune. And it seems to be what they did, exactly.
Now we have the Rakan. Potentially as the response, we're also going to have to see a top laner from both of these sides. Cabochard given the counter pick. There's a lot of different options that we know that this guy can play. Of course, Lucian, hey, something that has come out of his pocket before, but it's all going to be reliant on the counter. We've got confirmation of that Rakan now, though, so we've got a little bit of engage down bot side for X7 too.
And I wonder what we feel like here is some decently immobile lady carry, of course, in the Jinx, but right now you're very much about that team fighting. Do you continue to, well, do you want to continue to follow that up with the likes of an Ornn or a tank, or do you want to go for a carry like the Camille to try and lock it down as well to get some more side lane pressure? So far, it seems like they want to continue with that front to back. So X7 team's composition, you can already see it. It's all about the skirmishes. It's all about the team fighting.
And that is what they're going to try and do. But now the question is, what is going to be the solution? What's going to go into the Sion on the top side, assuming that there's not going to be any crazy flexes going around, and they could just go for the tank matchup themselves, grab themselves a lot of engage, a lot of power in the Ornn, which is what is currently being hovered. But of course, they've got a couple of seconds to change their minds. It's going to be locked in. So Cabochard up on the Ornn duty, up on tank duty to round out K-Corp's roster.
And that's the thing here as well. Like, this is such a K-Corp style as well, because if they're not playing around with the 2v2, they have like kind of two play styles. The 2v2 with the Rise and Twisted Fate, where they kind of cheat the tempo, they move around the map before your opponent, and then they start creating skirmishes. Or they just wait for an opportunity where they can just skirmish wherever. Like, they are a very team fight heavy team, and they like to do it out of nowhere. At times, their games can get a little bit chaotic, just due to the fact that if they see the enemy step up, they see themselves in a position to fight, they will handshake that, and they will fight it as well. So I feel like having the scaling aspect, having the better team fight composition is actually something that will benefit a team going up against K-Corp or being K-Corp themselves here. And I feel like the tools they've drafted for themselves, maybe the Pyke is a little bit iffy, but having the Jinx, of course, with the Ornn as well to peel, with the LeBlanc, with the assassinations, it's a little bit tricky, but it can work out for them on that aspect.
And I mean, if we were talking about chaotic, we've had enough of those games already here at the Amazon European Masters. It's been fight after fight, non-stop action. So building a composition that plays into that kind of internal meta could be a very smart move. Of course, on the other side, X7 have picked themselves up a lot of great tools, not only for the earlier stages and to go into those picks and team fights, but later game as well. So very excited to see if this game does become a chaotic scrap fest, which of these two very slightly different compositions manages to win out.
You know, my main concern about that is just like, who's going to stop the misfortune as well? Because there's some good answers into the LeBlanc. Whenever SAKEN wants to jump forward, Hantera even, like, they're just going to get CC chained by the Rakan, Lissandra, and Volibear. But the placement of where the misfortune will stand in team fighting is going to be pivotal. If Cabochard is in a position where Nata is just not allowed to stand still, that's great. But if he's not, then X7's composition is actually so easy to execute with their front to back.
30 seconds.
Okay, Corp just going for something a little bit aggressive. You talked about this going into the game, and Hantera leading the charge. Not going to throw anything down as Tempt is too reserved with his positioning, but it does give the opportunity for Haru to move in, get a ward into the red buff. And something that's going to be interesting to watch throughout this game is how these two junglers decide to play. Do you think that there's a lane that's really going to be the focal point, or is it just whatever works?
Well, I definitely think that Haru is looking towards the mid lane and bot side. That is where you can kind of find the skirmishes. You have to set up in lane with the CC, of course, from the Lissandra and the Rakan down towards the bot side. For 113, I feel like he can be facilitated a little bit by his team as well. Usually, Viego and LeBlanc has a really good 2v2, but it kind of depends on who gets first move. And if Lissandra gets shot, or if LeBlanc gets shoved too much in by Lissandra, it can be difficult playing around that 2v2. I think 113's intelligence is really what's going to be tested here as well, where in terms of how good is his tracking of Haru, can he be there for a counter gank? Because I feel like that's really what will solidify this jungle matchup. If he's there at the right time to surprise X7 when Haru is coming in for a gank, they might turn the tides. And it's not only just that, you know, it's the fact that you have a world champion in Haru playing up against 113, who is kind of like the rookie everyone was talking about just last year moving into European Masters. The difference in experience of these players, I mean, it cannot be understated.
Absolutely not, and we actually spoke to Kasing a little bit at the back end of his NLC split. It's actually Flash being burnt by Tempt as 113 goes for the early aggressive play, and he was saying how great it is to play with someone like Haru because his junglers, when they're a little bit less experienced, can't necessarily be the same in terms of leadership. And 113 moving into the enemy jungle, Haru is going to find him on his Raptors, a level up as well. He's actually going to deny away the big one and take most of the small ones as well.
Yeah, so get the ward, get a few of the small ones, gets to walk in towards the bot side of the map, but they all have that intel now. That's the big thing as well. They know Haru is pathing towards the bot side. They saw his blue buff, saw he was level 3, so know he cleared all his topside camps. He's going to be moving down towards the bot side, and therefore Hantera, you can see it drops a ward in the tri-push. If they can crash this bot side and just back off, it's just going to slow push back into them, and Haru is going to be forced to recall. So I really like the early jungle tracking here from K-Corp. They're actually playing it out very well.
Able to just keep Haru from doing anything too exciting in the very earliest stages, and if you can keep the mid-jungle duo from X7 down, you give yourself a much better chance of winning out in the game. Because of course we talked about how K-Corp weren't necessarily the world beaters in their region that we necessarily expected looking at this lineup, but X7 also found a few banana peels, especially towards the end of the split. You talk about Bifrost, but towards the end of the regular season, they were losing a couple of games that we wouldn't necessarily have expected them to.
Yeah, I think towards the end of the season for sure, but once they reach finals, like after having gone to a full 5 series against Bifrost, then meeting them against in the finals and then completely 3-0ing them in a fashion that wasn't really close all that much. Like I remember casting those games, they were over an instant, and I was actually left a little disappointed because the series was not as close as I had hoped for. X7, you know, they were really just shifting gears, and they've looked stellar ever since that final. Obviously, we haven't seen them, so me saying that doesn't mean all too much. Lots of things kind of change leading up to it, but it once again goes back to the experience. This is not just a bunch of rookies. This is players that played on the biggest stage in Korea, in the world, in the LEC and LCS as well, right? So for them right here, they're not here to get tested. They're not here to falter. They're here to show that they deserve being at a bigger stage. At least that's why they want to be here.
Nata going to be stopping his recall as Kasing able to follow through on it here. So now Hantera coming in from the side. Nata needs to be a little bit careful. Will be caught out by the hook. The Ignite coming down as well, but Hantera won't want to follow up on the gank. Rekkles unable to land the zap following through. At X7 needs to be a little bit careful on the bot side.
Yeah, a little aggressive, but in the bigger picture, it doesn't really lead to all too much. What K-Corp wants to do here is probably crash the wave. They want to go for a recall, get a beneficial tempo before the Drake spawns. And when that happens, yes, it's a bigger wave that Nata will be pushing, and yes, they'll be later to that Drake fight. But all in all, they haven't really lost all too much. And for the win condition of X7, which is still leading into the mid-game fights, they're still very much on par of where they want to be. They don't necessarily need to get things done all too much. Haru probably wants to show a little more in the early game on a Volibear, but they can't be all too disappointed with their outcome so far.
Absolutely not. And of course, when you hit level 6, going for dive plays, going for something in the bot side or the mid lane might be a little bit easier. Remember, there's a lot of setup in all of these lanes if they manage to follow through. You've got Rakan, Lissandra, Sion. There's a lot of CC to be landed on the top lane. Of course, diving at Ornn might be a little bit more tricky. And playing around Jaeger is not something that we've necessarily seen X7 do every single game. But Haru will have that opportunity. But on the other side, on K-Corp, got a little bit of a scrap in the top lane as Cabochard takes a bit of damage from Jaeger. Is actually going to ult forward, forcing the flash out of the Ornn. Resources being exchanged up top lane quite aggressively.
Yeah, that's as aggressive as that top lane fight is going to get between these two tanks. And then once again, with the tempo that K-Corp was able to net themselves through the bot side, they will be the first on the Drake. They should be able to pick it up. And quite honestly, Viperune, I think we'll be having a game that's going to be a little slow in the beginning. We're kind of waiting for the right moment where these teams feel like they want to make a move. They want to go for a team fight. Because even making plays on their opponents, I feel like they've done the tracking so well that they're not really trying to blow it all too much and just throw it all away. For example, now, 1-1-3 spotted on a ward. I think the bot lane will just be able to run out. They'll be losing some waves. Or maybe not.
Oh, they're staying in under tower, though. Kasing gonna flash away as 1-1-3 needs to be a little bit careful as Kasing steps forward, not to try to clear out the wave as much as possible to give themselves some breathing room. A plate goes down, but fortunately for X7, both of their bot laners survive.
And they just decide to be cheeky about it. They just want to outplay it instead. They don't want to forfeit any waves whatsoever. They do spend the heal, they do spend the flash, but they get to stay around, which is honestly not all too bad. Haru on the other side of the map gets to counter jungle a little bit, and I wonder if there's going to be any setup for the mid lane now. Tempt has hit level 6, Haru is level 6 as well. SAKEN might need to be a bit careful if this wave gets crashed.
No tower to defend if Volibear ults it, no movement if Lissandra ults you. Haru and Tempt have all the tools for a very fun dive if you're an X7 fan. If you're K-Corp, it's much less pleasant for you. But that being said, things looking okay across the board. Currently, gold is dead even. 7.5 minutes in. Rift Herald's going to be joining us in 30 seconds time. Has either team got an advantage towards that one?
Yeah, I mean, you can see it right now. Once again, it is K-Cup with the tempo. So in the grand scheme of things, these teams are not really gaining a huge advantage. But what K-Cup is doing very well all the time through their bot side is they're the one continuously with a push. And because of that, they get to move with their support around the map all the time. They get to be the one dictating the first push. And that's kind of what we're seeing here.
Terra missing out the hook this time around. Kasing is able to just stride away. Haru, again, has yet to really stamp his authority into any particular lane. Looking up towards Cabochard on the Ornn. The horn is available. The ultimate from Sion, not quite, but it will come off cooldown as I say that. Cabochard going to be caught out. The stun is being held by Haru excellently, and that's first blood Jaeger.
Ah, that's nice. They already blew the flash from the early exchange from Jaeger, and Jaeger actually showing up on the Sion. A bit of an underrated top laner as well. I was speaking to a few people that Jaeger's name isn't really mentioned as much as it probably should be between all these players. But make no mistake, once again, formerly known as Smithy J, if you are a seasoned EU LCS viewer, maybe even LCS, but from when he was playing there, I think back in Dictators as well. So showing up again is once again the former LEC top laner Cabochard.
It's talent across the board. There are very few names that haven't made a mark at the very highest level or even at the Amazon European Masters level, as Tempt is just going to take that claw across the bridge and finds his way out towards the top lane. But excellent play to get Haru the Rift Herald's eye as well. We talk always about it going bot lane towards the hyper carries, towards the marksman. Misfortune is a little bit different. Do we expect to see Volibear trying to invest down there?
I think we can still see it, but once again, the kind of problem that X7 now will be facing is that they're still not the team who's making the first move. K-Cup is, and you can see it once again. They're the one who's getting control of the red side jungle. So if they were to try and make a play towards the bot side, K-Cup would be ready for it.
Kasing in a lot of trouble, able to dive away towards Nata. The ultimate comes through, blocked by Misfortune, and the Ignite won't seal the deal. 1-1-3 though. He was thinking about striding forward, but Haru was in the neighborhood. So fortunately, everyone backs away.
Yeah, this is why it's so difficult. If Tempt is not able to move down, provide that bandage for them, this bot lane is going to continuously be under pressure. And once again, K-Cup, they're moving around as a team.
Tempt might be caught out here. Haru's in the wings, has ultimate available to go over the wall, but it would be a 3v2. And at the end of the day, X7, fortunately, are able to just move back towards the mid lane. Hantera making the aggressive plays. Kasing needs to move onto the map a little bit more as well.
And they get some breathing room now. Rekkles went back to the base for himself a little noon quiver combined with some pickaxes and daggers. Up against it, so far only serrated Dirk and Tear of the Goddess on the Misfortune. So once again, Rekkles onto Jinx, he's going to continuously be able to provide pressure. He's up 17 CS currently as well. So still very much lane dominant, or at least very good on the CS numbers as we know him. 1-1-3 on the top side.
Yeah, positioning very aggressively. Call of the Forge God will be blown, but Sion can't be displaced. He's running through and will be able to get out of dodge. We can see Haru has put the Rift Herald into the mid lane, and that should be first tower, opening up the map. Excellent for X7.
Yeah, this is great for X7. As soon as they spot 1-1-3 on the other side of the map, they know they have movement to just go for it.
Oh, Rekkles takes a decent chunk of damage, but Nata can't find the kill.
But now they at least force him out. They at least force him down to half HP. Heal is taken away, and yeah, that's huge. Why? Because Drake has just spawned, and X7, they should be able to pick up the first Drake. They knew was still 1-1-3 on the top side of the map. Red buff is the next camp that's going to be spawning for him. So they get to take away the second neutral objective, first Drake, which is great in terms of getting, I'm not back into this game, but great in terms of being a team with the tempo. You can see it now from the gold lead, 2k in favor of X7, just 11 minutes into the game.
And the Hex Gates are online. Let's have a quick look at gold across the board. In Jaeger, 1,000 to the good, but decent leads everywhere except bot, where, of course, Rekkles does have the advantage. On the Jinx, that's nothing to ignore at this stage in the game.
No, most certainly not, but, like, Jaeger as well, up towards the top side. He just rushed Hullbreaker. Look at that! Together with the Demolish. He knows he's against an Ornn, so he's not going to be taking a beating when he's there hitting the towers. All Cabochard can really do is just look at him and try and farm CS. So Jaeger, the further time goes on, can't go unchecked. I mean, they're going to be having to send multiple people up towards to just try and stop this side. He might become a little bit of a thorn in the side of K-Cup.
1-3 just hanging around in that tri-bush, trying to make something happen. Haru actually cancelling the recall in order to give some shielding and defense to the X7 bot lane, but it will just peter out and everyone wanders back towards their designated lanes, except Hantera, who wanders back towards the mid lane, trying to get a play happening on to Tempt. Chain doesn't land from SAKEN though, who's been forced to back away, and the Lissandra has done a great job of really nullifying this pick. Yes, they're down, Tempt is down about a wave in CS, but past that, SAKEN hasn't really been able to achieve too much.
I mean, it's an interesting game already because X7, you know, they're in the gold lead, but it feels like K-Corp, they're the one making the moves all the time. We see it as well from SAKEN. He continuously tried to move down towards the bot side, but what X7 has been good at then in turn is just that they're very good at responding to it. They're very good at not falling to the play of K-Corp, and because of this, they're able to stay even, at least in the mid lane. And then, as you say, yes, SAKEN haven't really been able to leave his mark yet, but it's also X7 who's playing really well around the movement of him.
So he needs to be a little bit careful. Caught out by the Pyke, has to get that damage down, but Kasing is there, and Hantera's the victim. It will be Haru securing the kill as X7 moved their attention back towards the bot lane. No support alive means that Rekkles half health could be in a lot of trouble. Haru moving it down towards the lane. Will he be able to get on top of Jinx? The ultimate is flashed away from him. He's going to follow through and will be able to secure the kill on to Rekkles. X7 start to get towards the driving seat.
There you have it, world champion, greater than LEC champion, to no surprise right there, and then off towards the top side, action not stopped. I don't know, Jaeger
wants to put some NA quality into the mix, trying to get some damage down onto Cabochard, but he's able to wander away, should be knocked up, but Jaeger not going to go towards the dive. 1-3 is hanging around as well, and the bot lane of Hantera diving towards Nata, can't find the hook though, as SAKEN will follow as well. Haru's moving down to give him some support. It's 1v2, 2v2 when the Volibear arrives. But Casey, in the end, chasing shadows a little bit.
He's going to one-shot this. Just look. Oh, so close. Let's have a look at the replay once again, because as you were saying, in the beginning, it's Hantera looking for the play, but it's all the CC chain once again, and it's why it's so difficult playing LeBlanc, playing Pyke into the composition of X7. If you just jump too far forward, you get hit by their CC. All of the CC of that composition, that's going to be layered towards you. Rekkles then getting chased down by Haru. Yes, Rekkles has the flash to follow it up, but so does Haru, and he's just getting taken down.
Now X7 find themselves very comfortably 4,000 gold in the lead at the 15-minute mark. I don't know if many people would have been expecting this kind of result from X7 initially. But the question now for me is going to be, K-Corp were the ones leading the charge up until this point. Are they going to continue to try and do that? And are they still going to be able to?
I think this is where we'll see the slowdown. I think this is where we'll see them get pushed back, especially because Harold is up on the table now. And this is where X7 really want to start their pressure. Oh no.
Kasing stole that away from 1-1-3, and now 1-1-3 over the back of the pit. Needs to get away using a combination of summoners and blast cones, but it will be X7 who can move themselves towards this second Rift Herald, and I don't know if there's going to be any kind of contest.
But how beautiful was that from Jaeger as well? He was just anticipating the ultimate from 1-1-3 over the wall. In the end, 1-1-3 still able to get out alive, but X7 still the one providing pressure, still the one going for the Rift Herald, while K-Corp, they're left to play cross-map duty. They're going for the bottom turret instead, and they will open up the map a little bit with their own first turret, although I don't think it will grant them too much in the grand scheme of things just yet.
And the question's going to be, what can Haru do with this second Rift Herald? The mid lane tower's already gone down. But now the question is, where does he want to attack the map? There's a couple of options. Of course, the bot lane outer, only one standing for the LFL side. X7 could look to target there, but 1-1-3, he's maybe lying in wait, but there's more members of X7 in that bush than maybe they'd recommend. But Hantera gonna go airborne for a second longer. Haru needs to be careful. There's a lot of damage onto 1-1-3. He's gonna be deleted by Nata as the Call of the Forge God lands onto 2K. Corp might be looking to try and get a re-engage, but Jaeger's there. Haru, speed of sound, moves into the backline, gets the stun down on to Cabo. He's a tanky on, but will he be the target? Taken on side, looking for the execution. Will be able to find Haru, but he survives on a sliver as Kasing gives him shields on the side. Tempt dives in, CC'd up, and Kasing secures the kill onto Rekkles. Cabo has to dive away. X7 take the fight.
X7, they're relentless in these team fights, and now they'll get to back off. They'll get to go for the Drake themselves. Haru, so close to falling, but as soon as Tempt joined the fight once again, that was over. Now Rift Herald will come out as well. I think they won't be able to get too much of this, so definitely not the most successful second Rift Herald. A little bit of a mistake there. I actually don't think it was on a timer too far just yet. I think Haru might have just accidentally opened that one up accidentally.
I guess the charge at least, so it will put some damage down into that mid-inner, and hey, as far as Rift Heralds go, getting a bit of damage down there is probably the best tower to misclick it into. But they will be able to grab themselves the second dragon for themselves, third of the game in total. Let's have another look at this team fight.
I mean, X7, once again, they know they just can stay grouped up. They don't really have the better vision control. Kasing is such a good predict as well, knowing that Hantera will E back immediately. And then you can argue that Haru might go for a little bit of an overchase. He doesn't have that flash that he had. He used it earlier to kill Rekkles, of course. But then, once again, the team is just coming alive on the side of X7. The heal from Nata, the shielding from Kasing, and then Tempt coming in with the claw, where Rekkles is just not anticipating it, not spotting it. And it's difficult to just highlight one member of X7 and say, yes, you're the reason we're winning these fights, because they're all just showing up with some clutch moments in them.
Now they put themselves in a very, very strong position. However, I am tentative. I did watch the last series between Fnatic, Queso, and Eska, and having a big lead at the 18-minute mark doesn't necessarily lead to victory. No further spoilers than that, although that's quite a big spoiler about how that game went. But now X7 needs to be a little bit careful in the mid lane. Nata just throwing down, making it drizzle rather than rain, because of course he's gone for the Eclipse rather than the Liandry's. Kasing alongside him, standing strong as Haru. Once again, could actually find out SAKEN gets the thunder, gets the damage. Tempt is there. It's the 2v1, and SAKEN will go down.
And there you have it. Haru and Tempt as a duo showing up once again. Haru just single-handedly going in for that counter jungle, finding another kill on SAKEN on the way out. Just brilliant. Tempt might be going too far forward.
I don't know, he might want to go further, throws the claw out, but doesn't follow through. And of course, that Rift Herald perfectly placed will help take down this mid tower. X7 opening up the map even further, opening up the game even further. Question being, what are they going to do off the back of this? Where are they going to look? They've got Baron up in 35. Is there a rush potential, or do they not have the damage?
I don't think you need to go for a rush here. And I don't think you have the rush potential either. Tempt, though, might have to go for a little getaway here.
Naken's going to dive towards him. The Lissandra's got a bit of time, can buy some, and there's the teleport coming on through. Jaeger will be helping Tempt get out. It's a 4v2 though. Looks like they're pushing up the wave, but won't look for the dive.
And honestly, forcing out Tempt's or Jaeger's TP there is actually a nice silver lining, just due to the fact that when Baron spawns, and if Jaeger was allowed to just go side lane all the time with his whole breaker, with no one coming down to him, and then having the TP up if they wanted to turn on the Baron, that is no longer there, and it will slow the tempo down a little bit for X7.
Tempo slowing could be good here for K-Corp, because X7 having all of the advantage, rolling down the hill, need to be stopped as Kasing dives away from a Viego that he spots. A little bit worried, a little bit concerned, throws up the cat emote, but manages to get away. So, you got Baron on the Rift now, but as you say, don't need to go for it, don't need to do anything crazy, just need to gain a little bit more and maybe a team fight alongside. Dragon up in a minute and a half, much more realistic that we're going to see a play around that.
Potentially, but it also goes back to what we were saying about these teams, right? They want to find skirmishes. They're not just going to run down river and then all of a sudden E-ram it to find a team fight. The way these teams play this is like, try and go in and invade camp respawns. Try and get in and get aggressive vision around the objective. See if you can catch someone off guard, as we just saw SAKEN got taken down earlier as well. It's a much more refined game that we sometimes see on an ERL level, and I can't say I'm complaining about it, but it definitely slows down the pace every now and then for it. And that's what we're seeing now as well. You can see it. Push in mid lane, push in the bot lane, get some vision deep into the bot side around this Drake, then set up for it afterwards. If we get the Drake, great. Now we're on soul point. We can start looking towards that. If the enemy walks into us, great. We can take the fight. But if they don't, well, you're still going to be happy about the scenario.
Absolutely. When you've got Jaeger on the side lane with that whole breaker, but I mean, I wouldn't be too happy if I was Jaeger, because he's getting a lot of time spent on him. The chain's going to come through from SAKEN. Does have a little bit of an ultimate if he wants to try and get away, but he needs to use it without anyone blocking away. Jaeger is going to pull the trigger, will be able to time out. K-Corp commit 3. Don't make a scratch.
Oh, and this is so important as well, because this is like in this group that K-Corp and X7 has placed themselves in, you know, they're a tough fight for the top 2 seeds. So the fact that one of them would already go, you know, 1-0 to the others, well, yes, of course it matters, because they'll be playing each other again. And if you get the head-to-head against the opponent, like that might as well just be K-Corp out of the group already if they can't find more victories. And that sound weird selling it off as this already, but the matchup between these 2 teams is just so damn important in terms of moving forward.
And when we already saw Gamer Legion put in such a strong performance to open their account in this group, and Team Phantasma didn't look like any slouches either, even though they lost out from a region that people aren't traditionally looking at. They're looking to give the GLL something to cheer about. We talked to their coach earlier today, and he was saying that he was looking forward to being able to beat any team in this group because everyone can bleed. Now we find ourselves Dragon secured by X7. They're going to be playing for Soul Point in 4.5 minutes time, and that could be a huge advantage in the coming team fights.
It definitely can, and this is just what we've seen from X7 so many times. I'd actually argue that this is way cleaner than what we usually see from X7. I mean, both you and I, we've seen them in the past. They get cocky. They like to play with their food. Haven't really seen that just yet.
Nata could be in trouble, though the heal is big. SAKEN goes low, will be removed. It's Haru again as he chases towards Cabochard. Gonna get the stun down. Rekkles gets the slow from the zap, and X7 a little bit slow on the follow, but Tempt following through, gets the root again as Jaeger moves forward. Haru trying to take down Cabochard, but he's a big nut to crack. Will they be able to do so? He stumbles out somehow as X7 unable to find the follow-up kill. But now we've got 113 looking towards a reset, trying to cut down Jaeger, but once again, this is the tank. They're not targeting the squishy members as 113 dives away from Nata's ultimate and marauds forward once again. Funnily enough, it will only be the 1 for 0, but these tanks, they just won't die.
That's the thing, X7 just so far ahead that they can allow themselves to chase down for the tank without anyone on K-Corp being able to deal damage back on them. Like, that is absolutely insane that they're allowed to go where they use everything, and I mean everything, on that Ornn. But let's have a look at the replay again. Let's have a look at the good reactions, because Nata immediately goes up, great knockup from Kasing into the charm afterwards to lay off the CC even further. And then comes the chase down. Like, already from the mid lane now, you have an ulting Sion and great usage of the W from Cabochard to make sure you won't get knocked up into the other knockup. But they used the Lissandra ultimate, they used the stun element, and there's just no damage coming through. You can see Rekkles in the back trying to pile auto attacks down, and they just don't do anything because X7 is so far ahead.
When they've got a top side of the map where it's Sion, Volibear, Lissandra, there's so much tankiness up there, you're not able to do damage regardless. 113 once again looking to make something happen. The Cabochard might have found Nata alone. He has to flash away. 113 over the wall, but doesn't decide to follow through. Haru's coming in towards the top side though. Jaeger's not there. Nata, this is the focus. Teleport's coming in well behind the players. Haru barreling forward, looking for something, but now Jaeger's found his way onto Rekkles. Haru does the same, but can they get the kill? Onto the Jinx, flashing away. The fight is continuing on the 2 fronts. Rekkles is trying to kite away. Massive damage going through Nata, but it doesn't land on too many. Kasing takes down Rekkles though, as Tempt follows through, looking for the CC, slows and kills 113. X7 get 2 picks, and now they can look towards the Baron.
Initially, K-Corp is doing the only thing they can do. It's look for the AD carry. It's look for Nata. He's the easiest target to pick up. But when they then expend everything to get him, and they don't, the teleports, everything from Tempt afterwards, the fight is just sealed, it's just done already, and they're just so split. The goal difference between the teams right now, it's just not fair. And X7 and K-Corp, they're not fighting on even footing.
Absolutely not, but now they're going to have to try and steal away this Baron. SAKEN diving through, gets a nice chunk onto Kasing, but he's not the priority focus. You've got to imagine this Baron's going to go low. Can it be secured? It will be taken by Haru with the smite. X7, Baron on 5. The question now has to be, I'll Tempt no, but the question has to be, what can be secured with this Baron buff?
I mean, you just imagine the whole map right now. X7, they're just stomping K-Corp as it is right now. K-Corp, they were very good to come in with responses in the beginning, especially what we expected from them. A team that likes taking their skirmishes, a team that likes to look for fights in the early game. But X7, they must have done their homework. They just continuously played off their fights. They disengaged them, and they played off their lane priority. And this is just what you're seeing right now in this team fight. It's all the work that X7 has put into the early to mid game, now finally being rewarded in the late game. K-Corp, they aren't able to do anything about X7. X7. And with a Baron buff, as you just asked, will they be able to close out the game with it? Will they be able to push for the base? You can only imagine so at this point. It would be a great comeback for K-Corp if they'd be able to take it back.
Jaeger finds his way into the backline, finds his way onto Cabochard, but again, the Ornn, he's behind, but he doesn't really care about a little bit of damage. And one thing about this X7 lineup is the composition doesn't have hilarious amounts of DPS. Nata's really going to have to put in the legwork, and he needs to stay safe to avoid the likes of 113 and SAKEN. Now diving on through, Haru needs to get more diving into the backline, gets onto a squishy member. Hantera has to bash away as Cabochard looking to break up the fight. Haru goes low, but Cabo's rooted. He's running rampant as Tempt moves towards 113. He has the ult for safety, but he can't find it in the back of the Dragon Pit as Haru rips him to pieces. Tempt secures the kill in the backline now. Kasing gets the knock up onto Cabochard, who tries to run away. Nata finally pulls the trigger on the ultimate and resets and damage. Me oh my, X7 take the fight, and with teleport, with Baron, they could end this game.
And the back-to-back champions of the European Masters, they might just take an L in their first matchup of the main stage against X7. A team not only designed to stomp the NLC as they did, but to contest for the title at the European Masters. And they're running down the base of K-Corp right now.
SAKEN's the only one there to defend, but I think he knows that there's not much that can be done. X7 take 1, 2 Nexus towers. The LFL finally fall, and it's the NLC that draw blood.
What a rivalry we're going to be having here. Remember, for the longest time, it's been K-Corp, at least all year. It was K-Corp making it to the finals, always against an NLC team. The first team they were against were BTXL, then later they faced up against Fnatic Rising. This time around in groups, X7 rather, with the NLC, able to contest with K-Corp. Brilliant, brilliant stuff.
1 dragon, 1 tower. That is all that K-Corp were able to get in this game. They didn't get a single kill against X7 in this matchup. And X7 drafted a lot of tanks, so it's much harder to take them down. But I am so surprised at how one-sided that game ended up being.
Yeah, and honestly, I really think that going into it, I was speaking with Nightmare, and we were talking about how K-Corp actually, into X7, they are having a little bit of a bad matchup. Like, they're so depending on getting their lanes ahead, and we saw it in this game, X7. They really just neutralized it all the time. So I don't think we should sell K-Corp out just yet. I think they still have lots to prove, but this one-off, this best of one, great for X7.
Well, we've just seen what the NLC can bring out. We've got another matchup with them just after break. We've got Bifrost taking on BDSA. Don't go anywhere. We'll see you in a few minutes.